I'm going to show you how I did the next layer on this composition. It's the layer that has the pearls on it. The first thing I need to do is open up the pearls and go File, Open. And here's the picture, the original picture I had of the pearls. And my task here is that I need to separate the pearls out from the blue jeans in the background. And I'm going to do this using my Quick Select tool and the Select and Mask function. So the Quick Select tool is good for getting started, but it's not a perfect tool. I know that we all wish in Photoshop that the tools would work as easily as they appear to in the tutorials that the Adobe people put out. But unfortunately, they don't always work that way. They choose really good photographs that are easy to make selections on in the Adobe tutorials. And in the real world, a lot of times we want to make a selection in a picture that just doesn't have enough contrast or has too much variation in texture and pattern. And so what happened was, if you look at my selection here, you can see that it did select the pearls, but in some areas it picked up some of the background, and it picked up some of the background along here, and of course it picked up all of the background inside these two areas. I can fix that a little bit by holding my Option key and dragging inside this piece of negative space, and you can see that it's giving me still an imperfect selection. Now it's cutting off part of the pearls, and I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to get as much of the background out of there and as much of the pearls selected as I can with the Quick Select tool, but this in and of itself is not going to be enough to give me a good selection. I'm going to have to go into the Select and Mask function, which is right up here at the top. As long as you have any selection tool highlighted, as long as you're using one of the selection tools, Select and Mask is visible. And when you click on this button, it takes you into another environment where you can do some really refined edge work on your selection. Now, one of the things I want you to look at is this Properties palette right here. There's a number of different ways that you can view your selected and your masked areas. And I prefer the overlay layer most of the time. It really just kind of depends on what the picture is that you're working with. But your options are onion skin, marching ants, which looks just like what you had when you were using the Quick Select tool. You can see it up against a black background. You can look at it against a white background. That certainly doesn't have enough contrast for me. You can also just kind of see the quality of your edges by looking at the black and white here. And you can see when we do this that it's really ratty looking along the edges. If we were to zoom in, we would see that the edges are very pixelated and they look very chopped off. And we want these edges to be nice and smooth. Okay, so I'm going to go back to overlay because that's what works easiest for me. And some of the areas are going to be pretty easy to clean up. Like you can see, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more. I really recommend zooming in pretty tight when you're trying to clean up a selection, because the better your selection is, the better your picture is going to look. And so we've got the edge cleanup tool right here. And in little areas like this where it just maybe didn't get all of the pearl, or the edge looks a little rough, it's kind of softening that edge up for me just a little bit. Okay, and see, I don't know if you can see that or not. It was very subtle, but it cleaned up that edge. It got a little bit more of the pearl and a little bit less of the background. Now, it's not going to work for me right here. I'm actually going to have to use my paintbrush tool to either remove the mask from the areas where the pearls are masked out, which is what I'm doing right now, or paint in the mask in the areas where the blue jeans are not masked out. And to paint in the mask, I need to hold down my Option key. So I'm holding my Option key right now, and that's painting in this red overlay in the background. Okay, so I'm gonna select I'm gonna paint in the masked area right around here. I may have to come in with a smaller brush to get up in the tight little corners. But you know, the thing that I want to make clear to you is that this is not always a fast, easy process. Sometimes it takes a little extra effort to get a good selection, and it's well worth the extra effort that it takes. Now, these areas where I painted in the mask, I may be able to go back in now with my Refine Edge tool, and it's both softening that edge, giving it kind of a nice feathered look, and it's also kind of cleaning up my selection a little bit. It's taking away some of the denim and painting in some of the pearl where it needs to do that. And so I'm probably going to go along all the edges with my Refine Edge tool and clean them up. And then areas where there's like a big area of the pearl that's masked out here, again, I'm going to have to go back to my paintbrush tool. Whoops, forgot. I was holding my Option key. I did not want to hold my Option key while I was painting on the pearl. There we go. Go back to my Refine Edge tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish cleaning this up, and then I will come back and show you how I paste this into my composition.